this morning. Last week we started a new series called Follow. And did anybody get these cards? Am I following? If you didn't, I would encourage you to take a couple of these cards this week to remind yourself of the question, am I following? And we're gonna continue on in this series. But last week we talked about how all of Jesus' followers were doubters and sinners, right? Every single one of them. In fact, it was a prerequisite that they were a doubter and a sinner. In fact, we see that it went many years, 2 years, sometimes even it wasn't until after Jesus died and came back to life again that people actually believed that he was the Messiah. And so oftentimes we have this mentality that you have to believe everything that's here in the Bible before you can start following Jesus. Now, the reality is that most of his disciples, for a while, it would say, he's going along and he's doing something, and then one of them believed. They had already been following him for months and sometimes years before they believed. So Jesus continually, he was inviting doubters and sinners to follow him. And that's good news for us. Because maybe you have questions about God, questions about faith. Maybe you have doubts even. Maybe you're not so sure of everything that the Bible says. But regardless of all of that, you're invited to come and follow Jesus. Regardless of your lifestyle, regardless of the amount of faith that you have, regardless of how much you obey God's word, regardless of how much you know about God's word, regardless of how much knowledge you have, regardless of any of these things, you're invited to follow Jesus. So that brings up the question, if we're going to be a follower of Jesus, what do we wear? Right? What do we wear? I mean, this is a serious question here. Like, what do we wear? If we're going to follow Jesus, did you know you can tell a lot about people by what they wear? Did you know that? You can tell. We got a couple pictures here. Let's pop some of these pictures up here. You got them? No, not yet. Oh, there we go. You guys see it? Anybody know what that is? Cheesehead. I went to Green Bay and I was there and people had their houses painted green and yellow. You can tell what he follows by, well, if it's a he, I don't know. By what they're wearing. Let's check out the next one. Anyone know what that is? NASCAR fan, right? Got a couple of NASCAR fans. Let's go to the next one. Okay, now how about this? How about this? Does anybody know what we can tell something about what religion do you think these? Yeah, they're Muslims, right? And this is how they dress. We can tell, but by the way they dress, we can tell kind of who they follow. They follow the teachings of Islam. Okay, let's go to the next one. Anyone? Jewish, right? These more traditional Jews, but we can tell by the long beards and the hats they wear and the curls that they have on the side, and they dress a certain way. Here's the thing. How do people? Oh, actually, I think we have one more before we see. You have another one? Yeah. Okay. How about this? Anyone know? No? Sikh. I think I heard someone say Sikh. Sikh is like the 5th largest religion in the world now. And they have these certain specific turbans that represent that they believe and they follow the Sikh religion. Now, what do people think when we think, how are we supposed to dress? What do we wear? Let's see this next one here. Right? Jonathan, you guys seen this guy before? He's really dressing the part here. Well, that's one side of the equation, right? And the other side of the equation is this. Turn or burn, right? And we see people that are out picketing and doing all kinds of things. So that begs the question, what do followers of Jesus wear? Okay, we can take that down now. That's actually why I wore sandals today. Because I figured, Jesus probably wore sandals, so maybe it was a good idea for me to wear sandals. But we think about, how we dress and all these things. But Paul, in the Bible, Paul was someone, he wrote a lot of the books in the New Testament, and he told us what to wear. Now, don't get too nervous, because we all know this is before the invention of buttons and zippers and things like that, you know? And before everyone runs out and buys a set of sandals, let's look at what Paul said. But let's think about Paul for a moment. Paul wasn't always named Paul. Before that, he was known as Saul. And Saul was someone who literally hunted down Christians to kill them and to throw them into prison. Listen to what it says in Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9, starting in verse 1. It says, "Meanwhile, Saul was uttering threats with every breath, and he was eager to do what? To kill. Eager to kill the Lord's followers. So he went to the high priest," verse 2. "He requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any of the followers of the way he found there. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains." So at first, that's what he thought Christians should be wearing, right? Was chains. I mean, this guy did not like Christians. Man, maybe you've been around some Christians before and you're like, man, I hate Christians, you know? Well, Saul at the time, he hated them even more. He hated Christians so much. But here's the irony of the whole situation. In the process of hunting down these followers of the way, these Christ followers, he became one. So the whole thing just spun around. And he went from hunting them down to preaching the message that they were preaching. But here's the interesting thing. As far as we can tell, Paul never actually knew Jesus. He wasn't there during the 3 years of Jesus' ministry. So a lot of what he learned was from conversations with the disciples. He knew the followers of Jesus. He knew them, and he talked to them, and he learned of Jesus' teachings. And there was several teachings that were very important that Jesus gave, but there was one teaching that Jesus gave specifically. And Paul, what he kind of did was he took this teaching and he made it more practical for Gentiles. Those are people like us. Those are the people that aren't the Jews. We were just kind of doing our own thing. Paul took some of these teachings and made it more practical for us. And he leveraged this teaching that Jesus gave at the end of his ministry. And this starts in John 13, verse 33. John 13:33 says, "My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. You'll look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come." So Jesus is saying, I'm getting ready to take a trip. I'm going somewhere, you can't come. But now he stops. He says, but here is the main thing. If you forget everything else I've ever taught you, here's one thing. This is the main thing. Listen to what he says in verse 34. He says, what? A new command. Now these Jews, they followed commandments all their life. They knew the commandments inside and out. And here's Jesus saying, okay, hold on. I'm going to give you a new command. This is the main thing. If you forget everything, don't forget this new command. You have to remember this. So he says, a new command I give you. What does he say? Love one another. Love one another. He's saying, I'm going to give you a new command. Love one another. And then he goes on. He says, I have loved you. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Now think about it. As I have loved you. Love one another. Like, we're not loving other people the amount of love we think they deserve, right? Because let's be honest here for a minute, okay? Let's take off the church mask. Let's just be real for a minute. Is there people that you know that you feel like they deserve a little less love than everybody else? Okay, a couple of us are honest. The rest of us are just lying. Because quite frankly, there's some people out there who are like, you know what? You don't deserve any love at all. I mean, like, you deserve nothing. And if you don't know anyone specifically, then we can look at world leaders and such like that, and maybe we can find some common ground there. But that our feelings say, you don't deserve any love. He doesn't say, love one another the amount that they love you back, right? Because how will that be? I mean, that would get us off the hook, wouldn't it? That'd be great. Oh, you're a jerk to me, so I can be a jerk back to you, right? No, he says, as I have loved you. Last week we talked about Matthew, right? And so he's like looking at Matthew. He said, Matthew, you remember that time you're sitting at the tax collector table? You remember that? You're sitting at the tax collector table. Everybody hated you. You were despised. You were a traitor to the Jews. You're working for the Roman government. And man, everybody hated you. But do you remember what I said to you? I said, follow me. And what did we do, Matthew? We went to your house for dinner. That love that I showed you, I want you to show that to everybody. I want you to show that to everybody. And Peter, I know you were upset. You didn't want to hang around him, but I still loved you too. And take that same love. And Nathaniel, do you remember what you said? You remember what you said? You said, can anything good come from Nazareth? Nathaniel, you just dissed my entire town. Where I grew up, you just threw everybody on the bus, but I still said, come and follow me. Don't love people what they deserve. Love people the same way that I have demonstrated that I love you. You guys remember when Jesus said to eat the flesh and drink the blood, and now all you disciples were running, you were ready to abandon me, but I didn't abandon you. Well, that same love each other. And then in verse 35, he says this. Just by this, everyone will know that you're my disciples. If you, what? Love one another. That's the mark. That's the mark of a follower of Christ, is if we're loving one another. This is what people will see. This is what Jesus was saying. When people look at you, I don't care if they see the curly little things or the hat that you wear. I want them to see your love. It should be so obvious to them that they can immediately identify you by this single trait. This is how Jesus marked his followers. And in that day and age, the Jews had very specific dress codes. They had very specific ways that they should cut their hair and not cut their hair and do their beard and clothing that they should wear. But Jesus is saying, that doesn't matter. I want them to know you're my followers by how you love. Verse 36. Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? What? It's like Peter, did you just miss the whole conversation? Jesus says, okay, I'm going to go somewhere where I'm going. You can't come. But here's the main thing. This is a new commandment. New commandment. Don't forget this. Love one another. Love one another like I have loved you. Oh, well, Jesus, where are you going? Where are you going, Jesus? It's like he just in one ear out the other. How often is it like that for us? We hear, oh, love one another, and it's like in one ear, one out the other. We're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know, love one another, yeah, kumbaya, my Lord. It's like, come on. He's saying, I just gave you the main thing, and all you're concerned about is where I'm going. I imagine he was probably kind of frustrated. He's like, where I'm going, you can't follow, but you'll follow later. But don't forget this main thing, to love one another. We've heard this so many times, but this is not a throwaway statement. This is not something that we can just ignore. It's not something that we just write into a song and sing it at church. Oh, we sing about love, we talk about love, but then we go out and we're a jerk to everybody around us. People have studied, what people think about Christians, and the number one word, when they say, think of any word that describes a Christian, the number one word, does anybody know what it might be? Judgmental. That's not love, is it? That's not love. But man, you look around and we see, there are a lot of judgmental believers. Listen to this. The pull of all religions, the draw of all religions is towards rule keeping and not relationship building. All world religions gravitate towards keeping rules rather than building relationships. Why? Because I'm in control of the rules, right? You give me a list and I can do the list. It's okay for me to hate you as long as I love God. And when I have rules, what do we have when we have rules? We have loopholes, right? Because you're like, oh, well, you didn't say this, and I find a loophole around that. So all these religions, they pull towards ritual and tradition and rules. They pull towards these things. And it replaces the priority of just treating people well, treating them with love. Now, some people that are here today, and if you haven't, then maybe someone you know, has probably been mistreated in the name of religion before. Or mistreated even in the name of Jesus Christ before. Or even been mistreated by a church before. You went somewhere and they mistreated you. Because the church says, oh, you can't do this and you won't do that and you got to do this. And if you do that, well, then you're bad. And if you do this, then you're good. And the church teaches this and that. And we end up getting rejected in the name of Jesus who died for us. The very same Jesus that died for us, they use his teachings as a way to reject other people. You know, I personally don't think that Jesus is very fond of his followers mistreating people, the very people that he died for. He knew, though, that if we were left to our own, if we were left to our own devices, if we were left to just do whatever we thought we should do, that we would end up making new rules. That we would just try to behave right all the time and just believe the right things all the time. If we behave right and believe right, then we're fine. We don't have to love anybody. We don't have to have a relationship with anybody. We don't have to have a relationship with God. That's why here at Thrive Church, our first value is the word connect. That we need to connect with each other and we need to connect with God. See, it's all about relationships. See, this is the thing that distinguishes you from other people, from other religions in the world, from just other people in general, is not how we dress, not if we wear sandals, but it's in the way that we love others. Not how much they deserve to be loved, but how Jesus loved them. And we often end up trying to replace love with a ritual and with a religion and with a routine. Let's not replace it. Because it's easy to confuse discipline with discipleship. It's easy to confuse discipline with actually just following God. Discipleship, like fellowship. I'm going to follow Jesus. You know, we can pray every day. I'm like, I got to pray every day. I got to read my Bible every day. I got to go to church on the weekends. But that's no substitute for how I love those people that are around me. That's no substitute for how I follow Jesus in my own life. Yes, we should pray. Yes, we should read our Bible. Not, though, because it's a rule. We do that out of a relationship wanting to grow closer to God. If you're just doing it for a rule, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And this is why so many people haven't come to church, or they gave up on church, or they gave up on following God because they met too many Christians that didn't show God's love. Maybe they don't read the Bible because the person that knew the most about the Bible was the meanest person they ever met. I hope that's not you. I hope we're able to show people Christ's love. So all these religions, they move towards, they gravitate towards following more and more rules because it's easier to just check things off a list than to actually love people that are hard to love. And we all know some people that are hard to love. So Paul, 20 years later, 20 years after he, has this experience where he begins following Jesus, 20 years, we're not talking hundreds of years later, just about 20 years later, Paul, he's going around and he's starting churches. He'll go into a small town. He'll meet some Jews. He'll meet some Gentiles. He'll start teaching them about Jesus. And then they'll all start gathering together. And then he'll say, okay, you're going to lead this group of people. And then they start leading, and he starts a little church there. And then Paul goes off and he does it somewhere else. And then he starts another church. And he starts doing that all throughout the Mediterranean Rim. And then he starts to mentor these churches by writing them letters. So he writes them letters and he's coaching them, but he sees that a lot of them are starting to replace the relationship with rules. They're starting to replace the relationship with rituals. And as a result, They're using these rules as an excuse to mistreat people that Jesus loves. So Paul says we got to take things back to the basics. He took the idea of loving as Jesus loved, and he made it a little bit more practical for the Gentiles. A little bit more maybe easier for them to understand. And he said these are the things that characterize a follower of Jesus. And this is in Colossians 3. Colossians chapter 3 verse 12 says this. He says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, do what? Clothe yourselves. So here's what a Christian Christ follower should wear. Clothe yourselves with compassion. With compassion. What is compassion? This word is an interesting word. You know, we say to somebody, I love you with all of my what? Heart, right? And this era, they didn't say that. Okay, the seat of their emotions wasn't their heart, it was their bowels, okay? So it's like saying, I love you with all of my bowels, you know? Or try that to your spouse, to your kids, to your parents. You know, honey, I just love you with all of my guts, you know? But here's what this meant. It meant compassion. And you know, you see something, you know, you see somebody get hurt or you see something, and man, you can just kind of feel it in your gut. And what it's talking about, this compassion, is a compassion that you can feel. It's a compassion that you can really feel. You see somebody that's hurting or in need, and you feel that for them. You feel for them, and you're compassionate, and you're driven to help them and do something about that. So he's saying, clothe yourselves with compassion. Clothe yourselves with compassion. And the thing of it is, you know, we think about clothing ourselves. We're like, oh, what does a Christian wear? We wear Christian t-shirts, or we dress up for church, or we wear a tie, or we do this, or we do that. Or, you know, forget about all that. Clothe yourselves with compassion. Clothe yourselves with kindness. Kindness. Man. How often is that something that we neglect? Just basic kindness. Treating other people with respect and kindness. Man, we sometimes here in Connecticut, we get like so caught up in the way that we live that we just forget about basic kindness. You know, I was just up in New Hampshire for a little bit of time, like we saw last week, and on a bit of the intro we saw here. And the interesting thing about New Hampshire is that oftentimes, like when you're like at a road, and where we were at, there's 4 lanes of traffic, 2 lanes on each side, and you're walking on the sidewalk, and you turn to cross the road, you know what happens? Everybody stops, and you walk across the road. Now, we go down here to the road, you know, and you try to cross that road, what are people going to do? They're going to speed up, aren't they? They're like, you ain't getting in front of me, buddy. I mean, you can see a crosswalk. I mean, I've seen people almost get hit in crosswalks. They're like, man, we're going by you. Because we've forgotten basic kindness. We need to put on the clothes. We need to put on compassion. We need to put on kindness. Just this basic kindness. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility. Now, what's humility? Now, a lot of times people get the wrong idea of humility. You know, it's like, you know, hashtag humble, you know, or whatever. And it's like, or I had this great sermon on humility, but I just want to wait till we have a packed house so I can give it, you know. Or it's like, you know, I wear a badge, you know, I'm humble and proud of it, you know. And I've talked to people like that, they're like, oh yeah, God's been working on me. I'm just so humble. Man, the time that you admit to being humble, you probably got a long way to go before you actually get there. But what's humility? It's not just, you know, because some people misunderstand humility and they just think, well, it just means talking bad about myself and thinking that I'm worthless. No, it's not that at all. It's recognizing where I stand before God. And that before God, all of us are equal. Before God, He loves me just as much as He loves you. And it doesn't, my accomplishments, my earnings, my achievements don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And neither do yours. And that means if I'm humble, that I see myself as God sees me. God's not impressed by what I have and what I've done. God already loves me as much as he ever can. So humility is coming up to someone and realizing, I realize that you have just as much value in God's eyes as I do. And it doesn't matter what you've done or achieved, and it doesn't matter what I've done and achieved. I don't need to sit here and try to impress you, because I already have the favor of the one who it's most important to impress. And I don't need to impress you. I can just come to you humbly. It doesn't mean that I say that I'm a loser and I'm worthless. It just means that I understand my place in the grand scheme of things. So we clothe ourselves with compassion and kindness, humility, gentleness. What's gentleness? When we think about gentleness, oftentimes we kind of associate it maybe with weakness. But it's not the same as weakness at all. It's like this. Does anybody wear contact lenses? I wear contact lenses. And you know what? I'm not like a really strong guy, but I'm a relatively strong guy. But when I pick up a contact, I use as much gentleness as I can. I don't pick up a contact the same way I'm going to pick up a hammer. Right? I pick up a hammer a different way. And gentleness is basically when we say, I have strength, but I'm not going to use it in this context and in this environment. I can be gentle towards someone else. I can be gentle in understanding of their feelings. I can talk with a child or someone who's elderly. I can talk with someone and be gentle. I don't need to go in just flexing my muscles and showing all the strength that I have. It's strength under control is gentleness. Clothe yourselves with compassion and kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Back to the illustration I used, I was in New Hampshire and people would stop to let you cross the road, and here we don't. Why? Because we're not patient, are we? How long does it take, okay? Let's see, which position should I put you in? I'll put you the second driver back, okay? We're stopped at a stoplight. There's a car in front of you, and the light turns green. How many seconds before you beep the horn? 3. Okay. Got some honest. It's like, okay. Oh, they don't see it. They don't see it. Okay, that's it. I'm late. Come on, you worthless scumbag! Get out of the way. It's like I'm ready to write you off. Just because you didn't go immediately when the light turned green. Because why? Because we're not patient. Patience is what? Patience is adapting my speed for the speed of those that are around me. It's adapting my speed. Maybe I'm a type A personality. Maybe I like to do this. I've brought some people backpacking before, and the thing that I learned about backpacking is I tend to hike reasonably fast. But if I go with someone that's never backpacked before and I hike that speed and that rate, they're going to absolutely hate it. So for me, it takes some patience to say, okay, I got to adapt myself to a speed which they're comfortable with. That's what patience is not being in such a hurry everywhere. Man, we are in such a hurry all the time. I've been driving places before, and Carolyn says to me, she's like, why are you speeding? And I'm like, I'm in a hurry. And she's like, but you don't even want to go where we're going. Why are you in such a hurry to get there then? But, that's how we are. We're not patient all the time. So we need to put these things on. We need to wear this clothing of compassion and kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. He summarizes all this in verse 13. In verse 13, he says, bear with each other and what? Forgive one another. If any of you has forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive how? Don't forgive like they forgave you. Don't forgive like they deserve. Don't forgive like you want to forgive. Forgive the way Christ forgave you. And he forgave you of everything. Everything you've ever done, he's forgiven you. Now forgive those around you in that same way. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Verse 14. And over all of these virtues, what does it say? Put on love, which binds them together in perfect unity. See, love is like the umbrella that covers all of these things. All of these things are really just a breakdown of what love really is. Love is compassionate. Love is kind. Love is humble. Love is gentle. Love is patient. Love is forgiving. So this is the dress code that Paul gives us. It says, clothe yourselves with these things each day. But we look at this list. Can we put that list up there? We have the list. We look at this list. Compassion, humility, kindness, forgiveness, love, all these things. We put this list up there and we say, how in the world can I do that? I just don't have enough time in the day. And it would be fine if I just could lock myself in the house and never go out. I could maybe I could do it then. Maybe not. But man, I got to go out in the real world, and there's jerks out there. There's people that they're just stupid. They just do dumb things. How in the world am I going to do it? I just don't have time, and I just don't have the energy, and I just want to get through my day and come home and watch TV. How can we take it seriously? Well, I relate with that. And I look at this list too, and I'm like, man, how do I do this? But we look at the dude that wrote this. This is Paul. And I don't mean to be offensive here. But Paul accomplished more in his few years of ministry than probably any of us will ever do in our entire lives. He taught things that are still being taught 2,000 years later. He helped to launch a movement. Now, the best that maybe we can do is start a great company, maybe do an iPhone app, and we're like, woohoo, But Paul, he did some real, cool stuff, and he really impacted a lot of people. But it's him that's saying, and he did all this without Motrin and without electricity, right? He did all this stuff. It's not a natural thing to do. It's not natural to be compassionate to someone who's a jerk to you. It's not natural to be humble. What is the whole purpose of our society? Man, we go around and we like to tell people our titles and this and that. And, I got this degree and that degree, and here's my resume. And we talk about our achievements and our accomplishments. But we need to remind ourselves to put on these clothes. Because Jesus wants to identify us. He wants us to be identifiable by the way that we treat others. Now, there's a problem with this sermon. And I'll tell you what the problem is that we listen to it and we're like, yeah, it's great. And you'll leave there and you'll say, oh, that was a great sermon. I'm giving myself a little extra credit here. And you're going, oh, yeah, that's fine. Well, what are we going to be talking about next weekend? We're in this fall series, so I wonder what's next weekend. And it's like in one ear and out the other. But Jesus is saying, this is the main thing. This is the most important thing we can do is treat other people the way Jesus treated us. We need to remember these things. Now I know this is lame, but you guys ever seen one of these before? VHS for you youngins. We used to watch movies on this stuff. This movie, Ever After. Anybody seen this movie? What would we classify a movie like this? What's the genre? Anyone know? Chick flick. There we go. Chick flick. And this one happens to be rated PG. There's not many chick flicks that are rated PG, but let's just think about chick flicks that are rated PG. Let's look at this here. Change the next thing. There we go. Chick flick. PG. I know it's corny. I know, it's horrible. If you could think of a better one, go for it. Chick flick, PG, because we need something to remember this, and maybe it's just so whacked out that you'd be like, oh yeah, that was stupid, but I remember it. So when we get up in the morning, we clothe ourselves with compassion. We clothe ourselves with humility. We're like, I'm going to go, I'm not going to just brag about my accomplishments. I'm going to go with humility. I'm going to go and I'm going to be kind. We're going to express kindness to those that are around me. I'm going to express forgiveness. Not the forgiveness that I want to give to somebody, but the forgiveness like what Christ has given to me. I'm going to cover all of these things with love. And again, with kindness, because I needed it twice in there to make it work. And you know what? It's probably something we need to work on, so it's good that it's in there twice. And then the P for patience. I'm going to clothe myself this morning with patience and with gentleness. This is the clothes that we need to put on each and every day. It doesn't come naturally. Jesus says this is a new commandment. In fact, you can forget about a lot of the rest ones if you apply this one. But here's the thing. It's a commandment and not a suggestion. He's not saying, if you feel like it. No, he's saying, if you want to follow me, This is how people are going to recognize you. This is how people are going to distinguish you from those that are around you. And some of you have been in a situation like that before, where you've gone in a situation, or maybe you've lost a job, or you've lost some money. People around you, or somebody's hurt you, and people are saying, I don't understand how you can still express love even in the midst of all that's going on here. Why aren't you a jerk like everyone else? You say, well, it's just because that's what we do when we follow Jesus. We need to put it on. Because, let's look at those pictures again. You got those pictures? This is how some Christians dress. We got it? That last one? You have the very last one? There we go. We got these two extremes here of how Christians dress. And you know what? You know what's the truth about these guys? They're trying to make a point. Right? They're trying to make a point. But did you know Jesus never came to make a point? If he came to make a point, he could come, make the point, 15 minutes later, he's gone. You don't need to die on the cross to make a point. You don't need to come back to life again after 3 days to make a point. He came to make a difference. He came to make a difference. And some of this stuff, yeah, it's fine. We're going out, we're making a point. But I think the mark of a true believer is that we come to make a difference. A church is here to make a difference, not to make a point, and certainly not to point the finger at somebody else. If we're a follower of Jesus, then we need to be willing to try everything we can to show love, to show compassion, kindness, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, love to those that are around us in humility. And this is often the reason why people have given up on church. And maybe you've given up on church at some point in your life. Or maybe you've never gone and maybe you just decided to come today for the first time or the second time. I don't know. But it's often because we've seen too many Christians going around there. They're half dressed. Or they're not clothed at all. They don't have any of these things on them. They don't have that. They're just going out. They're just doing whatever it is they want to do. They're just going through a routine, saying the right words, believing the right things, behaving the right ways, but they're not loving the people that are around them. So tomorrow morning, here's where the rubber meets the road. We got these cards. And I would encourage you to take some. Put it on your mirror. Like if I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to look in the mirror. Most of us do that. And if you don't, try it. Maybe tape it to your mirror. Tape it to your steering wheel, or put it on your dash, or put it somewhere where you're going to see. Take a couple of them, put it around. Put it in your wallet before you take out your credit card. Am I following? And tomorrow morning when you get dressed, put on your chick flick. Put on your compassion, your humility, your kindness, forgiveness, love, patience, gentleness. Let's put these things on. Because the same way that Jesus' love has made a difference in you, he wants his love to make a difference through you.